Hey there, welcome to episode 125 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, recording this at 1:35 p.m. on Friday, July 18th, 2025. I don't know if it's supposed to rain. The weather's been really weird the last 2 days. So if we hear, as I often point out, the street noise sometimes enters my audio productions. Production by a street, you will hear me say sometimes. I don't know. I have this weird feeling there may be some slippery roads, and we'll see so if we hear anything crazy, forewarning. The topic of today, the topic and title of today is strategy, and as you know, we talk about the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem here in the Greater Vegas area on this program. So you can make some guesses, but that's what we're going to talk about today. If you happen to be new to the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, what does that three-word title of the the channel mean? Well, I will tell you briefly. Cafe Genius is a thing. I needed to name an effort that was wrapped around some community elevation efforts of my own. The pitch workout room is where that started. The Genius Roundtable, and so on. So, pitch workout room, where you start with your idea, no slide deck or formal presentation required. Sort of an open mic for people to start their journeys. It was pretty successful, 19 months worth. So Cafe Genius was born in January of 2022. The name of this program thus comes from that. Cafe, from Cafe Centro, the coffee shop where startups start in San Francisco in the South Park area. It's where Jack Dorsey met. I want to say it was, I cannot remember now. I don't care that much. The coffee shop itself is what matters. It was kind of famous for the Twitter connection, but generally speaking, it's where startups started. South Park in San Francisco, located very near what is today the Oracle ballpark. It used to be the AT&T ballpark. Before that, it was Pac Bell Park, I think, probably in the time of Twitter startup scene. The Cafe Centro did not survive for very long after the pandemic. Post-pandemic loss continues. So that's unfortunate. It was spelled with two F's, as is Cafe Genius. And frankly speaking, I think the Greater Vegas area needs something equivalent to Cafe Centro, probably more than one such spot. And to be clear, Silicon Valley had many coffee shops where startups started, but Cafe Centro was uniquely located and quaint, I guess, in the best possible way. It was a cool place, a very cool park to hang out and talk about changing the world. Genius, as in smart. One would hope that genius type persona would hang out at a Cafe Centro or the equivalent. So Cafe Genius thus was intended to elevate the conversation, I guess you could say. And impresarios are people who do just that. Spelled with two S's, of course. Two F's for cafe, two S's for impresarios. These are the people that are making things happen. Cafe Genius Impresarios, people who should hang out at the Cafe Genius and have conversations here. No guest as usual. So it's just us. I often say, I should have guests again. Booking guests is tricky in the Vegas area, so we'll see if that ever becomes interesting again. Hopefully wherever you found, I don't know what I was going to say there. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, if you've located the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I will read here, and the links for today's episode. Normally I would have links for a guest, for example. That's why the links, as you will see them, start with host. Those are my links. If there was a guest, I would say the guest's homepage or blog or Substack, or Squarespace or whatever. The links that I have for myself will be doing some changing. Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi are not going anywhere, but I'm going to sort of de-emphasize those a little bit. We'll get to those when I am flipping through those 4 links for today. I was going to include some other links, but they're links that I've talked about many times. One of these days, I will dive back into the particular areas where some links would have been appropriate. I would really like to have conversations about those with some people here or elsewhere. So we'll see. We'll see what unfolds. On that note, let us begin so that we can enter the weekend wherever you might be. And if you're not listening to this on Friday, so much the better. Summary of today's episode is thus my own take on how to proceed with startup ideas and more in the Greater Vegas entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. Terse? No. Concise. The links, as usual, the first two are buymeacoffee.com, and so /Dan Hugo to get to my profile, which has links to all of my audio programs and projects and some of my favorite coffee beans as affiliate links and some other stuff. And then buymeacoffee.com /Dan Hugo /posts, where there was once the exclusive, it's no longer exclusively published there, the Buy Me an Update audio program published on Mondays, wherein I do 5 minutes or less, a quick rundown on the previous week's audio programming subjects, and then any news or announcements into the future. By the way, no obligation to spend any money at either of these sites. They are here for my listeners and my audience in general. They're engagement tools. I've used them for years. I just don't really focus too much on them, nor do you. The other platform is Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com. The hyphen is located next to the 0 on most keyboards, and I'm assuming physical keyboard on your phone. Good luck. It's there somewhere. Ko-fi.com /Dan Hugo and ko-fi.com /Dan Hugo /posts. I don't use the Ko-fi profile page so much, but I do post the Coffee Solo audio program on the posts section, but no longer exclusively. Why is that? Very briefly, neither buymeacoffee.com nor Ko-fi, I say it like that because it's spelled unusually, Ko-fi.com, neither provides a proper RSS feed or an easy way for people to access and share the programming and so on. So I had created some Spotify channels for both Buy Me an Update and Coffee Solo. Then Buy Me an Update had a little problem on Monday this week, and I was unable to upload the Monday episode of Buy Me an Update. And their customer support responded after a few hours, which is how they advertise. We'll get back to you in a few hours. Yipes. So later Monday night, I was given the usual, did you reboot your computer and et cetera, et cetera. So it was a problem on their end. I later would find out, but they did fix it by Tuesday. I didn't want to go into detail. I could see that they were having some problems with requests not happening to do an upload and all. The take home, I cannot rely, even for something as simple as the Buy Me an Update audio program, I cannot rely on, we'll get back to you in a few hours and so on. And yeah, I know I'm not paying for a service level agreement or anything, but it's too easy to self-publish, which is the goal, and to use services like Spotify, which are bigger and actually do respond in useful ways with customer support, which I have experienced. On the other hand, they did delete an entire channel of mine one time. So once again, cannot count on platforms like Spotify. But either way, there is now a Buy Me an Update channel show on Spotify, and it will gain some other RSS feeds as I sort of get this going. I just basically published everything on Tuesday, and today's Friday. And the same with Coffee Solo. There's a Coffee Solo channel, show, and there's a Buy Me an Update show. So now those will be available elsewhere. I went on and on for that one. I didn't really want to talk about that so much, but it's part of the strategy, I suppose, is to not rely on services that are not reliable. I can hear it raining outside, yet the weather report says it's going to be sunny all afternoon. Cloudy, but no rain. I wish NOAA was funded. So all the time, if you are not new to this program, you know I talk about this. I talk about aspects of this frequently, in fact, and I surely speak on and about the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem in every episode of this audio program. So if you're new, welcome. You're jumping into the middle. If you're not, don't fast forward. It's some new stuff. It has been a while, though, since I've spoken in any detail about my own startup efforts here in Greater Vegas and my approach to a variety of efforts, not the least of which is our Nevada nonprofit, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, we have commenced our 4th year as of July 1st, by the way, which is a cause for reflection, to be sure. Anyone who's filed the 1023-EZ knows that once you're through your 3 years after your filing, we had no gross receipts prior. So 3 years after our filing, or after our determination, which is now, we no longer have a $50,000 gross receipts cap on donations. Yay! We've never come anywhere near that, but it's nice to know we have that room now. But this is the sort of thing I would like to have conversations with others about in our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. But that is another angle on all of this, convincing people to be a part of a growing effort, like developing an audio program like this one or any media, from blog to video to whatever else, can be a challenge. One of the ways to do it is to set up a place where people can sort of run into you. You can have a startup scene YouTube show, and people that are milling around doing, hey, come over here and be on my show, and that's fine. The audience is still not there, but people don't know that. So I'm trying to build an audience, and along the way, invite people to come on and have their conversations and so on. There are different strategies, and so mine is to try to build something useful, and then show, don't tell, which we'll get into later. I'm not saying any particular strategy is bad or wrong, but I do find it challenging here in Vegas. Now, again, if you're new, you've not heard this, but I grew up, so to speak, in Silicon Valley. I landed in 1993 out of college, and just at the beginning of the dot-com boom. Coincidence? Probably not. So when I got there, the recession was just coming to an end. I got a job at Apple, a place I had always wanted to work, and so on. So things were looking up, and I had a really interesting time there, and I learned a lot about an innovation culture. And so I know when we don't have one, but if we can change that, it takes time. And it's really raining. I have made no secret of my view on the notion that Las Vegas will be, or some claim it already is, the next Silicon Valley, with some attempt to draw tech companies large and small to the greater Vegas area. Hey, move to Vegas, become a local, etc. I do not see this happening for a long time in any sort of numbers that would place Greater Vegas into the league of tech centers like Austin and Silicon Valley, and even the Phoenix area in Arizona. There's a lot going on in Utah. There's a lot going on in LA. There's some happening in places like North Carolina and even Oklahoma. There are places to do cool things in Denver, in New York. So Las Vegas has to overcome some things before it would even get into that league, in my opinion. But look at those places and their culture, especially Silicon Valley, of course. Even Austin, and Austin did break its culture to make itself a tech center at great cost, perhaps. Ask people there, they'll tell you. I think we can really face some big changes that people in the greater Vegas area might not really be ready for or actually want. And again, you can look at Austin. Well, keep it weird. Well, not so much anymore. They priced out a lot of the people that were keeping it weird. Can't afford to live there anymore. The same could happen in Vegas if we're not careful. I wonder very seriously about what I usually call the talent pool in this area with regard to the tech startup notion. But I think the talent pool is actually pretty deep. Not just not in the same way it is deep in other places. Silicon Valley has some of the more well-known college and university programs and facilities. Stanford, of course, kind of world famous at this point, often referred to as a VC, venture capital entity with a university attached to it. But it is a place that plays an important role in the innovation culture and, of course, the successes of the Silicon Valley area for more than just the time you're probably familiar with. I did a whole entire episode about this, episode 85. Give that a listen. So I wonder very seriously about our talent pool. Does it mean that there's nobody in the greater Vegas area to pursue tech-related startup ventures? No, not at all. There are plenty. It is not the next Silicon Valley, though, which is why I continue to emphasize making this a better Vegas, a greater Vegas, which is a focus, of course, and not the next Silicon Valley. We should be what we are and make that better, not try to be something that someone else is that we are not. Someone. I'm anthropomorphizing entire regions. You take my meaning, I hope. While Southern Nevada, maybe all of Nevada, continues to have a high unemployment rate, higher than usual, higher than the national average. If I remember correctly, for June, it was the second highest unemployment rate. That's not something to be too proud of, I hope. And with tourism down this year due in no small part to global economic implications of tariff policies and general sentiment about the whole United States. And thanks to our leadership, it is important to be creative and innovative in ways that are not parasitic. That is, placing the current workforce and economy at risk for the sake of a big wager on something else. Hey, let's get tech companies to move people here, and then we'll raise the cost of living by increasing the cost of housing, and we'll price out all the people that make the economy what it is today. So we'll put all our eggs in the basket of being the next Silicon Valley, which we will not be, and then crush and destroy the things that are here and the people that are making those things possible. So I don't know what that means. I'm a humanist. I don't know, but where am I? There are plenty of people here, which is why I continue to emphasize making this better Vegas. Yeah. So, okay, I found my place in my notes here. The notion that we can just turn this into Silicon Valley is ridiculous. Again, if you listen to episode 85 of this very audio program, you can learn some of the history of the cultivation of innovation culture in Silicon Valley, for example, the place that everyone compares themselves to, and realize that it actually started in the mid-1800s when Leland Stanford was selling picks and shovels to gold miners. Stanford University is actually named for his son, who died at age 15, I believe it was. A place to be a part of the innovation culture. So the innovation culture in Silicon Valley did not just spring up after 2008, not by any stretch. You cannot simply sprinkle money on top of an area and turn it into something else. We're not an ice cream sundae. I wonder while I really got to do better keeping my place in my notes. While Southern Nevada may be all of Nevada, I've already done that. Current word for I keep this in mind, symbiotic possibilities that do not involve damage or destruction to some of the participants. Yeah, okay, so I've caught up with everything. So the take home, the point I'm trying to make, this happens when I go off my notes and express my thoughts freely and ad hoc. I really think there should be much more focus on elevating entrepreneurialism, not so much focus on tech, the tech scene, the startup scene. These are all good hand waves, but the telltale sign is when you start seeing the same people all the time. In a recent report, which I did an entire episode, yet another ecosystem report, I think it was. If you look at the list of startups that are finding success here, it's always the same list. Over a couple of years, you should start to see yet more success stories, not the same success stories from last time. So we're fanning the flame of the same candle. We're not seeing new flames getting started. I don't know what that really means. I just made that up. So let's talk about visitors. Now, tourism is down. This is true, but it is down by single-digit percentages, totaling. I wrote totaling about 1 million people for the first half of 2025. Now, that's not trivial, and I'm not trivializing it. Why did I misspell totaling? What's a totaling? Oh, 1L. 1 million people is a lot. And if you are a big, giant corporation with tons of rooms, I think we have 155,000 hotel rooms. Got to keep those full. But for small companies, startup ventures, there are still almost 20 million visitors or so for that first half of 2025 who did come to Vegas. That's a lot of people to engage with your new products or services. One of our initiatives at Innovate for Vegas Foundation is called Welcome. It is a general take on an interface to this so-called smart city, and that's a whole other thing we can talk about sometime, for people who are not locals. Did I talk about? Yeah. So people that are not locals, they're visitors. This They're the prize of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. So 20 million people did come here, but everybody's concerned, oh, tourism is down. That's right, unless you are a small company and you only need to encounter a few people. That's still 20 million people or so that have come here. So yeah, we have the Welcome Initiative, which is part of the My Muni initiative, which is aimed more at local people. Neither of those is Vegas specific. We can start here, but think beyond, because not everything revolves around Vegas, believe it or not. So hopefully it will enable and encourage people to interact and engage with the ever-changing terrain of the greater Vegas area, whether they are here for vacation, a trade show, a sporting event, gaming, escaping life in general, and here for a weekend of gambling and debauchery, or maybe all of these things and more. One of my own startup notions, the second, so not receiving the full attention it deserves at the moment, is all about engaging our visitors with regard to new products and services to learn more about these things from the variety of visitors from so many places and cultures about those new products and services to capture sentiment and extend reach to them when they are back home. When they head back home, they can think about Vegas in one of two ways. Not everything stays in Vegas, as the old marketing tagline goes. So one way is, what happens in Vegas stays. The other thing is Vegas could be making itself known in memories and direct engagements with people. And that's one of the sort of driving forces of my other startup, the SRC. I've talked about it briefly, and we'll talk about it some more when I have some more to show instead of tell, which I'll get to in 2 more sections, I think. So locals versus visiting. Now, I live in Vegas. I actually live in the city of Las Vegas proper. Many people get confused. There is a web tool. It's not really a complete application, but it's basically an open data application on the ArcGIS website. I think that's where it is. Am I in Vegas? I think it is, or where am I, or where, whatever it is. And it uses your GPS on your phone, and it will tell you if you are in the administrative boundaries of the city of Las Vegas. Many people confuse the Strip or Henderson or other places that, I'm in Las Vegas. And generally speaking, you are, because many will believe that the boundaries of Las Vegas extend well beyond the planet Earth. But from an administrative, postal, business licensing perspective, it's important to know where you actually are. So I am in the city of Las Vegas proper. I've lived here for just about 12 years this week. Officially August 1st, if anyone asks. I became a resident on August 1st, 2013, but I landed in Vegas to commence this journey around the middle of July. So it was around now. I think it was actually the 12th or the 15th, maybe, somewhere in there. So yeah, the last week or so. Vegas is a fairly transient place, people coming and going. Some people come to Vegas for brief periods, and of course, the tourism component of the economy is non-trivial, obviously, with something near 40 million visitors annually, as I suggested, 20 million for the first half of the year or so. I think it was 41.7 million was the official number that they throw around for 2024. So the panic is over the reduction from that number. So for the last 2 years, 23 and 24, in a post-pandemic era, we were actually seeing reasonable numbers. That's higher than it had been. So generally, very generally speaking, something of a monotonically growing tourism base, which is why they want to put it at risk by changing the economy into a much riskier one. Not that there's no risk in gambling. It's kind of built into it, right? No, the fun economy is more than just gambling. I'd be willing to bet on it. One notion I posited 10 years ago, I had lived here for just a brief amount of time. I had just started working for Intel. I was traveling around. I was meeting a lot of innovative people. And I posited the notion of the Fusion Center to connect local talent, local resources, and visitors pursuing startup ventures, either here or elsewhere, making Vegas something of an innovation destination. That did not manifest at the time, but the general idea is still viable and may make sense in place of upending the existing economy for the sake of a diversified economy. Now, we already have a diversified economy, so I'm not going to not going to nitpick too much. The 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 notion is, oh, we should definitely have more startups, more funding for startups, more exits. We should definitely gentrify, especially the housing market, so it's more expensive to live here. We can replace the service industry and the hospitality workforce with robots and automation. We won't even need people anymore, and we'll turn Vegas into ghost town. I don't know. I think it was featured. There's a game about New Vegas and 2049 Blade Runner. I think Vegas is heading in that direction, maybe, with that sort of thinking. But the Fusion Center, it did not manifest, but maybe it could happen. I continue to be a supporter of what I call the innovation destination notion, which makes use of the destination city status of Las Vegas and the potential for convergence of local and visiting when it comes to innovation. So we have local innovators and we have people who come to Vegas for CES or NAB or various other trade shows and conventions, or maybe they can just come here because their workforce is distributed around the world, and it makes Vegas, which is a destination city, into a place where you could come and innovate for a week or so. Innovation sprints, anyone? And then head back home. We have 155,000 hotel rooms. Sometimes they're not full. Sometimes tourism is down. Maybe we should be reaching out to startups and small businesses that are distributed around the country and world. Hey, why don't you come to Vegas and have your company meetings and innovation sprints here? And I've told the story before. Intel was doing this. I don't know if they're still doing it. They're having sort of a problem lately. But they used to have their Intel Sales and Marketing Conference here in Vegas at the, I think they had the actual meetings in the Venetian. They usually book the Venetian forever into the future. The executives stay at the Palazzo, everybody else stays at the Venetian, and they get some conference rooms, some big conference rooms. They would have all of their sales and marketing people from around the world come to Vegas for a week every year, Intel Sales and Marketing Conference, learn about new products, go through basically a private trade show or a private convention, then send them back. And I always tell people, you didn't have to move here for Formula One. You could come here and visit. So Vegas already understands the notion of people visiting. The business development side seems to think you have to get people to move here. All the math for the water that we don't have is done for visiting, not for moving. So we'll see how that goes. Part of the challenge is to make these possibilities visible, though. When I was traveling on behalf of my previous employer, Intel, to hackathons and other innovation-focused events and whatnot in other parts of the world, the notion of Vegas on the outside, that is, when I was somewhere else, was never along the lines of an innovation hub. No one was thinking, oh, you're from Vegas. That's where all that innovation is happening. In fact, people used to wonder do you gamble all the time? It feels like it. But the current pitch and hype is about being the global innovation hub. And I don't know if that's really, City is a showcase. I've done an entire episode on this. Are we seeing innovation here, or are we seeing innovative endeavors come here to showcase their wares to those 40 million visitors, which I think is a great strategy. I'm all for that one, but let's not call it something it isn't. As one individual steeped in the European startup scene asked me at CES 2024, why would anyone try to build a startup in Vegas? And I didn't really have a good answer for him. It is a good question. We need a better answer in general. And the answer should include visiting Vegas for intersection and collaboration with others who might do the same. We were at a rather well-known trade show with visitors from around the world at the time. After all, CES draws crowds from everywhere. Sometimes as many as 180,000 people visiting the show, not to mention the people that are working the booths. They're here on behalf of their companies. Sometimes they're contracted and so on. And CES does give plenty of jobs to the local workforce. Door, security, customer service, not to mention the bartender and service industry folks who can take part in some booth catering. Oh, it's coming up on 4:00. Time to have the bar open in the Samsung booth or whatever, right? Good times. Now we have to deal with solves. So my strategy, though, continues to be to not look at Vegas as like an island. Vegas is a destination, and it should be a destination for people innovating in various areas. And it's a place where you can do some co-creation with our 40 million visitors each year. If people would grasp and design their notions around that, I think Vegas can be a very successful place without having to actually build a startup here, locate talent, relocate talent, and so on. Build your startup where you want to build it, but make use of the resources that are Vegas as an innovation destination. Now, solipsism, not my favorite thing about Vegas. And I'm not talking about everyone, not even close. There are about 2.3 to 2.4 million people in Clark County where Vegas resides. And by the way, I was going to say this earlier. There have been notions floating around, I don't know where they are, that Clark County should be renamed Las Vegas County or maybe Vegas County. So you'd always be in Vegas. And it's actually not too dumb an idea. It does make some sense. I have met a couple hundred of the people here. Certainly, maybe 1,000. I don't know. Well, which is just about 0% of that local population. So I cannot speak for everyone, and I do not pretend to. But I will say this. It is difficult to find people in the greater Vegas area, probably more in the so-called startup scene. So I'm not talking about bartenders and restaurant owners and retail shop owners and so on, but certainly the people in the so-called startup scene who are not living, it's hard to find people in that scene who are not living a life of solipsism. That is substantial focus on self rather than others. And this is often coupled with a transactional approach to interaction. So we get an awful lot of people, and then note I did not say a lot of awful people, an awful lot of people focused on their own endeavors, conducting transactional interactions for their own sake when it suits them, not often the other way around. If I ask people, I recently sent out an email to like a dozen or 15 people here in the greater Vegas area regarding my search for new board members to join the Innovate for Vegas Foundation board of directors. How many responses did I get from locals? 0. Those are the sorts of people that are not going to play a part in our cultivation of an innovation ecosystem, because innovation culture, I should say, in the ecosystem, because you do need to be a part of something that does not include you directly or immediately, either or both of those things. So yeah, we'll see. But solipsism can be a challenge. There are certainly people who do and are, who do express and are indeed interested in getting in on new ideas, collaborating in new ways, and so on. But reaching them it's something of a challenge. My strategy here is to reach out much more often, I suppose, to people I do not already know, since there is a greater chance of finding the non-solipsistic people in that group, in that population, than in the group or population of people I already know, because I already know they're solipsistic. I know that's unfortunate and glib, but it's the truth. It's the nature of the startup scene here. They don't know quite how to do it. And that extends all the way up to the people that are, that one of the problems is that people look to some others to drive these things. And the people that drive them don't understand that. And these are people that work with the city or that have the halo placed upon them. I've talked about all these things before. The piece, and I will again, if you want to come on an episode and have a chat about this, the piece of this that is concerning is not with the actual entrepreneurs pursuing their startup ventures. There's always a concern about time and limited resources. I totally get that. Responding to an email can sometimes take, I don't know, a minute, maybe less, and that's hard to come by sometimes. It is the rest of the crowd afflicted with this lack of intellectual curiosity, if that is a term that works here. And this is something that a culture of innovation has inherent within it. So I don't think, have that yet. This is why I'm concerned that this global innovation hub hype that we can read about more recently, it used to be that we were just an innovation hub that rivaled the San Francisco Bay Area and the Silicon Valley. We are now a global innovation hub. We rule the world in talking about innovation. It's rooted in fiction or perhaps some distant future, but today we do not have a critical mass of people who are interested and excited by novelty in our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. And that is something those of us who do see value in that will need to cultivate. And only people who want to see that long tail play out and who understand that the return on investment of time, effort, and expertise in pursuing this may come later. Hopefully it will come. Maybe not at all, but it'll probably come. But not today. There is no free lunch available for you today. Sorry. So yeah, my strategy here is to stick with my belief, my understanding that the culture of innovation here is a necessity for any sort of meaningful success in this realm. Otherwise, people can flourish without that. You'll just build that culture, which I don't think is possible, but you'll encounter that culture and contribute to its cultivation by just doing what you're doing without waiting for someone else to provide a free lunch and a bunch of classrooms for you once a month. Now it's time to show and not tell. I have described my interactions with the city of Las Vegas previously. They're not pleasant, but for one person, I've been generally disappointed when it comes to discussing innovation with the city of Las Vegas folk. With some of the solipsistic interlopers of the startup scene as well. I'm not fond of the term startup scene, but it is certainly made up of people whom I would not think of as startup people, if that makes sense. I always say they're aspirational, not so much nascent, maybe nascent. There was the use of this term, which of course is now a little bit dated, but it was, I'm a startup guy, or I'm a startup girl, I guess, a startup gal. I don't know whatever the right way to, but a startup person is someone who sees the path and looks towards a point into the future and not concerned with today so much, taking some risk, understanding that not everything will be in place on day one, that we have to, tighten the belts, so to speak. So if you are a startup person, right, the more modern way of thinking about it, if you are of that mindset, then you will understand that you don't go into your startup journey expecting to have a company credit card and a full travel budget and a company car. Like you are building something. You are not being handed something. And I think we need more people here who understand that. And some of the value proposition comes from interaction and engagement with others that are in the same boat. The culture of innovation kind of fuels the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, right? It's like a nice layer of topsoil in which to grow these flourishing possibilities. And some of it will come from symbiosis, that is collaborating a little bit, being out there and talking to people and being a part, because that comes back to you later. But this is a place and a culture that values shiny objects over stories about shiny objects. That's my take. Show me what you got, if you have heard that expression in a cartoon or maybe elsewhere. Fits here perfectly. This is, it can be a challenge to be sure. Now, I am fond of and believe the notion that ideas are worthless. That is true. I believe that. And that execution is all that really matters, especially when you're talking about startups and so on. So talking about an idea doesn't really make things happen unless you're pitching it to people and trying to convince them to join be a co-founder or so on. So ideas are worthless in the larger picture, but certainly in the smaller discussions, they are the beginning of the beginning. So it's important to know exactly what that means. Hey, I have an idea. Who cares? That's not where that applies. But there is a gap in there, because good ideas may require the effort of more than one person. See, that's what I'm getting to. And convincing more than one person to pursue the development of the thing, to whatever it is, to show, can quickly consume all of the time that might have been spent on that development. Not to mention consumption of other resources. So what I'm saying is, and you'll hear people say, you got to work on your pitch deck. You're going to have to go to try to raise money. Yes. But unfortunately, in a place such as this Greater Vegas startup scene, you're going to encounter people that they will listen to what you have to say, but then they will disappear. I don't even think they're stealing an idea. I don't know if but either way, the bottom line is there is not that talent pool I talked about earlier in the startup mindset, the intellectually curious when it comes to the so-called startup scene. This is not to discount the population in general. There's an entrepreneurial bent here, but it may or may not be as varied as it was in the Silicon Valley area. So that's again why I say we're not the next Silicon Valley, not for a long time. Hey, there's an emergency broadcast system tone that I can hear on. Flash flood warning. Okay, I don't know if you can hear that, but I'll just let it play. No, ideas are worthless. There's a gap, and you have to convince people to join in, and convincing more than one person to pursue that development can take all of your time, and it can certainly take up your money if you have to travel or prepare things or spend money to become a participant in competitions or other engagement activities. The days of sitting at Cafe Centro and meeting your next co-founder out of the blue, they're hard to come by here in Vegas. I am troubled, though, that the lack of culture of innovation coupled with this show me what you got is a hill to get over, and it can make any startup scene here something of a challenge, to say the least. I avoid the startup scene here because of this and other reasons, and have spoken, but mostly they're just about the return on investment of time. And I've spoken of the second startup scene, that I call it that, the second scene, as a better focus for those serious and those actually engaged in their startup pursuits, not talking about it. But there is that gap challenge, finding the path to a working demonstration of sorts, or showing something for your work so that other people will actually lean in. And I'm not kidding. I've heard this, oh, well, do you have something you can show me? That's for much cooler scenarios. Here, it's still the wild, wild west. I think that it's too soon for that. There's too much Silicon Valley elitism coming through in questions like that, and I don't think we're ready for it. Honestly, my strategy here is to simply stay solo and hope for the best, leveraging my own background and experience. Though some sort of time doubling would be useful. If I could get 48 hours a day, that would be nice. What about the Maya principle? I've definitely talked about this. My raw episode time is 45 minutes, so I think we're going to come in under an hour, but we'll see. The Maya principle. I don't know if you can hear the wet roads outside. So yes, I'm really hoping that flood warning and the fact that I'm very near a road does not lead to some special sound effects based in reality. So the Maya principle. I've referred to this maybe more in our foundation website. I'm sorry, our foundation website does have this mention. I've talked about it in terms of innovation and innovating for Vegas, but the notion from the famous designer Raymond Loewy, there's a quote: to sell something surprising, make it familiar. To sell something familiar, make it surprising. Given our tourism focus and actual numbers of people who visit here, there is no shortage of opportunity to do just that. There's a whole mess of people coming here every week that could be shown surprising things or familiar things that are surprising. I find that the effort here in Vegas is often about doing something that is happening in other places, except when it comes to the fun economy, perhaps. But even that is sort of a brute force shiny object, if you take my meaning. Hey, let's build another professional sports stadium that is amazing. Who cares if it's going to actually return anything or be worthwhile in general? Let's just build it because it'll be a big, giant, shiny object and it'll get lots of attention. If that was a startup, you would never hear about it. Loewy's design principle was dubbed Maya, for most advanced yet acceptable, which we lack here in our Global Innovation Hub, to be honest. That is, a lot of people aim for the middle, or knockoffs, or basically doing the safe thing that is familiar, but not surprising at all. Some might try to do something a bit too radical. I have not really heard of these for some time, so maybe they don't last long enough to get any attention. I'm not really sure about that. But at the end, and that should change, by the way, at the end of the day, innovation does not happen as if by magic, nor by simply doing the same thing as in other places, as things that are done elsewhere by others, and calling it new because it's in Vegas. The perceived value of software innovation, for example, far outweighs the cost to reach the level of surprise, which is why it is so exciting to think in terms of software startups in the startup scene. But that aside, novel solutions implemented in software that is aimed specifically at our visitors, but also at people in general, is one of the elements of my own strategy, and one of the driving principles of the foundation, which aims to make our communities better. Now, not only through software, but certainly beginning there, because you get more potential outcome with very little in the way of financial investment. So it comes down to more civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise, not access to capital, which is what everybody is concerned about here in Vegas. So we try to make a difference and innovate along the way without regard to exit strategies. And this can also apply to other areas, but software, you can get away with that without having a large amount of funding. As soon as you start making physical things, that kind of goes out the window. There is so much possibility to explore beyond software here in Vegas, but it is a place to begin the journey, and that's my strategy, both with our nonprofit and with my own startup ventures. Last section, the other stuff. As a quick reminder for those who just joined us with this episode, my view is that our ecosystem, our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, can be described with the 4 key pillars. And now you can define other pillars, especially if we break these 4 up a bit. So there are a couple that are clearly smashed together, but 4 is an easy number. Access to capital, it's the one that everybody focuses their attention on. It's always the number one problem people perceive. You got to have access to capital. I would argue that that's only one of the four pillars. It's not the main pillar, but it's certainly one to be concerned about. Culture and community. I used to say community, but I think the innovation culture, the culture in general, and the ability for people to interact and engage. The word community is often overused. Like, I'm building community. I prefer to think of a community as an emergent property of a region, and communities can happen online, virtually as well. So, but culture and community, just the ability to exist and flourish in an area, to give something back, to be a part of its flourishing. Education and talent. Now, there is a belief that you do not need to go to college to be fill in the blank. My doctor tells me all the time they didn't go to college either. But the important thing to realize is that education and talent kind of go together, but they're not, one does not require the other. A talented person can be in the greater Vegas area. An educated person can be in the greater Vegas. The educated person may have talent. The talented person may not have received an extended education. So I'm not saying that these are two great tastes that must go together, but I am saying that if we have a strong educational base, we will tend to have more people with academically derived talent, and there may be other people with just natural talent, however you want to look at it. Bottom line is, it's always good to have people around when you're trying to make a global innovation hub, because like it or not, humans are going to be a factor in this for a long time. If you are replacing employees with AI, you'll be hiring those people back and they'll be making more money from you, or you won't be around long enough to go through that. But people are so important, education and talent for the win. And finally, infrastructure. This is often in the form of government infrastructure, so regulation and legislation, the installation of physical infrastructure, public works, right? Fiber, communications, transportation routes, the electricity that we all need to power all of our notions, clean water, potable water, access to food. These are the sorts of things that the government can enable, but the infrastructure in general, there's some private, public-private, etc. So I'm just generally saying, unless you're completely online and you have no ties to the physical realm, infrastructure is an essential component of an ecosystem. And even if you're only in an area part-time or infrequently, you still use it. If you land in an airport or you travel around in a motor vehicle of some sort on a road, you're already halfway there. As I always tell anyone who will listen, entrepreneurs cannot wait around for others to solve their problems. I take this medicine myself, so that even though I often shine some light on or cast some shade upon some of the aspects of the current ecosystem here in Greater Vegas, I know quite well that I must be a part of the change that needs to happen. And no, this is not a quote from any well-known internet meme. Those are all fake. There's a Lincoln said this on the internet how many times? He blogs about it all the time, despite what you may think. So do some research on the meme, but also on being a part of the change that you want to see happen. Again, just do it. Don't worry about who may have said it or may not have. If you're waiting for others to do the things that you feel need to be done, then maybe you should go somewhere else. This is why I'm pursuing the Innovate for Vegas Foundation and its long path into the future. It's why I produce audio programming like this, why I pursue ideas like the Roundtable, the Genius Roundtable, and the Genius Lunch, and why I have ideas and pursue them in general. What this means is reduced focus on those who do not subscribe to this notion. If other people are waiting for things, I don't want to spend my time contributing to their malaise. People who are transactional and who take more than give, and on efforts that will ultimately consume without return. In other words, fail fast. It's something to lean into, and serious is the way forward. Do not spend and waste time that could be better spent elsewhere. Excelsior is the word of the day for the rest of the year. So that's my general strategy, is to pursue novel things, take advantage of the population of visitors that we have access to here, elevate communities through innovation of various kinds, interacting as much as possible with interesting and interested civic volunteers in making the world a better place and not being transactional and solipsistic. We have plenty of that here already. That's where I'm going to leave it for today on this rainy Friday, July 18th, 2025, here in the greater Vegas area, in the city of Las Vegas proper. Production by Street. Signing off. Take care.